Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for October 11th, 2025. Here's the latest cartoon here. The cartoon video is basically Richard's Trump with handpicked U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. Here's Lindsay here. Thumbs up. Lindsay Halligan in Oval Office fantasizing former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton's prosecution and mugshot. Okay, so there's his mugshot, and they're having this conversation, and here's how it's going to. And I'm going to read you before we get to that. I'm going to read you the introduction to this here. So here we have. Given, reportedly, last Thursday, it became evident that Attorney General Pam Bondi was caught by surprise when President Trump's hand-picked U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan secured New York Attorney General Letitia James' indictment from a grand jury. Halligan, who has been running the Eastern District of Virginia for just over 2 weeks, she did not tell either Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, or other leaders at the Justice Department headquarters in Washington, D.C., before presenting the case to a grand jury. So she went renegade out on her own, and she didn't mention it. I'm sure she probably didn't mention it to the, as they said here. She didn't mention the Justice Department. She probably. It sounds to me like she probably. Was working with President Trump here. It sounds that way, but I could be wrong. I'm just saying it sounds like that. So, in my opinion, that's kind of like, say you take Pete Hegseth, and like Steve Feinberg, his deputy over at the Department of War, and let's say Steve Feinberg decided, well, he's going to order up some planes to go out to Montauk Point and attack a very suspicious fishing boat out there in Montauk Point up in New York State without telling Pete Hegseth or anybody about it. We don't know if President Trump knew about that or not, but I'm just saying, I can't imagine she's only at the job 2 weeks and she did this on her own without telling Pam Bondi, and she doesn't have experience in prosecution. She's basically an insurance attorney, and she'd go that far out take that greater leap to do this without telling Pam Bondi about it. I mean, she's the number one justice official in the country. So I'm just saying that to make you think about it a little bit. Okay, so that's that. That was a point there. Okay, and that presentation that she made without telling anybody about it there, it resulted in James being indicted on 2 charges. So Letitia James, that was the head prosecutor in New York, who basically led the charge against President Trump with his the way he his accounting and his procedures for evaluating his properties, and she found that he to get better deals, whether it would be mortgages or whatever it was, that he didn't represent the true values of his properties, and that was a civil case that Letitia James won. So President Trump is not too happy with her, obviously. Okay. So being indicted on 2 charges, she's indicted on bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. So what they're saying here is that Letitia James went out and she took out a mortgage here. She signed papers on a mortgage and represented a certain property as her second residence. When what she was doing here, decided to do, was use it as a rental property. So she would have gotten better treatment from the bank in terms of the terms as her second home rather than as a rental property. Obviously, the banks figure, well, she's making rent, she's getting payments from here, from this property, she's making income, so we want to share some of the income too. I mean, that's how the psychology of the banks, I suppose, work here. But what happened is that Letitia James says that she realized she made a mistake and she changed it, you know. So I mean, the fact of the matter is she didn't profit on this thing. She changed it. She admitted she made a mistake, and she didn't cover it up. So she faced it. She came face to face with it, and now she's being prosecuted for that. She didn't make any profit on that at all, you know. So that's as closest to the facts as I could come to here. Okay. And then there is James Comey. Okay. Now James Comey. The charges against James Comey, and he was the former Trump's director, FBI director, James Comey, for lying. He's being charged for lying to Congress 5 years ago. This is 5 years ago, about having authorized any leaks related to an investigation that were also brought by U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan. She brought that against Comey, and I think she got a indictment against him, and he's going to have a trial in a month or so. So people are nobody wanted to take it, but Lindsay she went right into it, and she got the indictment. She doesn't have much experience as, like I said, as a trial, as a prosecutor, but people have said that you can go to grand jury and you can indict a ham sandwich. So there's a big difference between getting an indictment and getting a conviction on somebody. So that's a big leap. So we'll see what happens here. With Halligan's predecessor, Eric Seibert, who had been see what happened here is Halligan's predecessor, Eric Seibert, who President Trump had appointed, okay, he had been the acting U.S. attorney in that position. And reportedly, he resigned under pressure from President Trump because he didn't want to charge Letitia James because he felt there wasn't sufficient evidence, evidently, because she did come forward and say I made a mistake, and she didn't reap any benefits from it in the final analysis. So they felt there was no charge to be brought. So that's another thing there. Given President Trump has said at the time he wanted to get rid of Seibert. This is again Eric Seibert, who refused to bow to President Trump's wishes to prosecute Letitia James. Okay, and now the president's former national security advisor, John Bolton, is under federal investigation. He hasn't gotten an indictment yet, but he's under federal investigation in Maryland regarding his handling of classified documents, and he's expected to be indicted. They went into his place, into his residence, and searched out, and they found some things. He says that there's nothing there. There's nothing there that they found, But the president, they're saying this was to our national security, that he had things, I don't know. So that's going to have to come out in the wash. I don't know, but it's hard to imagine that Bolton, knowing that President Trump didn't like him too much, because John Bolton was talking, really raising a lot of talk and talking very loud about criticizing President Trump for his foreign policy and national security decisions. He was doing that, and look, this is the only. He has been. John Bolton was a pain in the ass to Obama too. He and many of the things. I have to say this. I agreed with a lot of things that he said back then, and then Bush put him at the George W. Bush put him at the UN, and then when the Democrats came in, Bolton was gone. So Bolton has a reputation of being very very hawkish on matters, and some say he's too much, and so but he doesn't have a reputation for being dishonest and taking things that don't belong, that would jeopardize national security. So I personally, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I don't know. That's still a question mark, but I can't fathom that he'd be stupid enough to know that President Trump, it must be a little bit what's going on here, and President Trump, he's now he's on the list. He knows he's on the list of President Trump for retribution. So I don't think he'd be stupid enough to put stuff in his house that people could break into and find there. I don't think he could be that stupid, So anyway, so that's the story with the backdrop to this cartoon here. And here goes the cartoon. Now here we have, again, here is President Donald Trump in the Oval Office with his new head prosecutor in the East Virginia office here, Lindsay Halligan, and she had been an aide, and she had been his personal attorney, and she was taken from being an aide, right, put in there, but she has no prosecutorial experience, but President Trump felt she was loyal, and she passed the loyalty test, and she was put in there, and so far she's doing a pretty good job in the eyes of President Trump, I'm sure, because she's got these two indictments, against Letitia James and James Comey. So President Trump is all smiles here, with her there in the Oval Office, looking how we're all smiles. You can see that, he's smiling there, looking at her, and here goes the cartoon. And he's saying here goes President Trump, and he's saying here, Lindsay, you now have enough prosecuting experience from indicting Comey and James. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Maryland will handle Bolton. So I'm going to give this to the Maryland office to handle Bolton. You've done a good job. You've got the experience now. And this is going to the Maryland office. Probably has some good loyal people there too, So, and then here goes, and then Lindsay responds. She retorts back to President Trump, and she says, here she goes, and she goes, Mr. President, I can't wait to see Bolton's mugshot. So she's waiting to see Bolton's mugshot. And President Trump here retorts back to her, and he's saying, Lindsay, I can see that sleazeballs. President Trump did call Bolton a sleazeball. He did do that. I could see that sleazeball's mug photo. I could just envision that. And here's what he's envisioning. And here is Bolton's mug photo. There it is. He's envisioning this. He's envisioning that he will get an indictment from the things he found in Bolton's house, and the prosecution, and there is Bolton's mugshot that he will be found after being tried. After going to trial, he will be convicted, and there is his whole thing there, mugshot there. There he is. Okay. That was John Bolton, President Trump, and Lindsay Halligan. In the Oval Office, thumbs up. And there is President Trump's cowboy trying to tame a wild horse in the Oval Office that he has there, in the Oval Office desk. And there it was. All right, folks, thank you for watching my video. God bless you. And hang in there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.